We look at the latest numbers, all the details of their factories and production, and possible future growth of ACB and the whole MJ industry. This should tell us if they're a good investment right now. I'll also show you guys my personal investment in them. But don't buy this stock based on this video. Do your own research and make your own decisions. Subscribe, hit that bell, and leave a like for more MJ videos. I make these every time there's big news. And check out Monk's Market Mastery in the description below, a fully animated course on the stock markets for half off, but only for a few more days.
Greetings everybody, my name is Gibbs, you can call me Gilbert. In today's video, I'll be covering three very interesting topics. The first one is going to be a full breakdown of ACB, Aurora Cannabis Strategy, in the Cannabis Market 2.0. I'll go over each point and give my opinion on those different segments of edibles, beverages, vape pens, and other points. Because I do believe a whole lot of people are curious about this company's strategy. The second topic I'll be covering will be about a scandal related to Aurora Cannabis. I know this is the first scandal hitting that company. I want to give my opinion on that because I would much rather have this type of a scandal news instead of going through what CanTrust, Afria, or even Canopy, the buzz of ditching the CEO away, because I do believe that this type of scandal is actually pretty minor. Okay, so I'll go over that. And the third topic I'll be going over will be about TGOD for that one viewer subscriber. I'll go over the latest news on it, give my opinion, and then go over the stock chart. Before I get started in today's video, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone that liked, commented, and subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for the support, and let's get started. So in this article of Market Realist, Aurora Cannabis preview of its Cannabis 2.0 strategy. I'll go over each segment, give my opinion on it, because I'm super excited for the strategy, and I do believe they are focusing in the right parts of the cannabis market, which is edibles. I won't go over the introduction because we all know that ACB has multiple facility strategically located to facilitate distribution. They are going to scale up, ramp up, and improve packaging and distribution. So we all know that. I'll go straight to the point in the edible strategy. Here it says in the report, Deloitte estimate the market opportunity for cannabis-infused edible to be 1.6 billion Canadian dollars. The agency drew several conclusions based on a survey of 2,000 Canadian adults conducted in early 2019. Consumer preferred cannabis-infused edible format include cookies, brownies, chocolate, and gummies. And I do believe I was one of them. I got called, gave my opinion. I hope I'm among the 2,000. Because I did answer some questions. Here it says Aurora Cannabis aims to leverage the opportunity by initially introducing edibles like gummies, baked goods, chocolate, and mint. According to the press release, the company entered into a partnership with two companies in the edible category. The first one is Jacek Chocolate Couture. Accordingly to the company, the company will use the latter intellectual property to manufacture cannabis-infused chocolate. Or Cannabis has also partnered with WG Pro Manufacturing Touche Bakery to manufacture cannabis-infused baked goods. Here it says on October 3rd, the company also announced the near completion of Aurora Polaris, a hub for producing cannabis-derived products like vapes and edibles. The company expects building occupancy by October 31st. My opinion on it, I'm super happy. I do believe making those type of edibles is much more easier than having to develop a beverage, because with a beverage it's really a hit and miss.
Thanks for calling. All right.
And if you just think about it, you're mixing oiled CBD components with a liquid that is really that's high on polarity. I mean water, right? Mostly water, liquid. So it would be really hard to mix, as opposed to just food. You just take the pill, take the oil, spread it through the edibles like gummies, etc. And I think the upside is much higher on the edibles area. Okay, so super happy that they are focusing. They pointed out multiple times that their focus is edible and not the beverage. Even though the beverage is high on their list, this is their primary goal. Okay, the second, concentrates 2.0 strategy. I'll go over each segment, give my opinion on it, because I'm super excited for the strategy, and I do believe they are focusing in the right parts of the cannabis market, which is edibles. I won't go over the introduction because we all know that ACB has multiple facility strategically located to facilitate distribution. They are going to scale up, ramp up, and improve packaging and distribution. So we all know that. I'll go straight to the point in the edible strategy. Here it says in the report, Deloitte estimate the market opportunity for cannabis-infused edible to be 1.6 billion Canadian dollars. The agency drew several conclusions based on a survey of 2,000 Canadian adults conducted in early 2019. Consumer preferred cannabis-infused edible format include cookies, brownies, chocolate, and gummies. And I do believe I was one of them. I got called, gave my opinion. I hope I'm among the 2,000 because I did answer some questions. Here it says Aurora Cannabis aims to leverage the opportunity by initially introducing edibles like gummies, baked goods, chocolate, and mint. According to the press release, the company entered into a partnership with two companies in the edible category. The first one is Jacek Chocolate Couture. According to the company will use the latter intellectual property to manufacture cannabis-infused chocolate. Or Cannabis has also partnered with WG Pro Manufacturing Touche Bakery to manufacture cannabis-infused baked goods. Here it says on October 3rd, the company also announced the near completion of Aura Polaris, a hub for producing cannabis-derived products like vapes and edibles. The company expects building occupancy by October 31st. My opinion on it, I'm super happy. I do believe making those type of edibles is much more easier than having to develop a beverage, because with a beverage it's really a hit and miss. And if you just think about it, you're mixing oiled CBD components with a liquid that is really that's high on polarity. I mean, water, right? Mostly water, liquid. So it would be really hard to mix, as opposed to just food. You just take the pill, take the oil, spread it through the edibles like gummies, etc. And I think the upside is much higher on the edibles area. Okay, so super happy that they are focusing. They pointed out multiple times that their focus is edible and not the beverage. Even though the beverage is high on their list, this is their primary goal. Okay, the second, concentrate strategy. Deloitte estimated the market opportunity for cannabis infused concentrate to be 140 million Canadian dollars, so almost 10 times less. According to the Cannabis Business Daily, consumers have been demanding high potency and low cost concentrates. The report claimed that large and efficient cannabis cultivators will only manage to sustain in this market in the coming years. Aura's scale and retail relationship make it one of the few cannabis companies suited for the cannabis infused concentrate segment. According to the press release on Wednesday, the company produces concentrate from 100% cannabis derived rosin. Through a property extraction process, the company aims to use concentrate to manufacture products like live rosin, shatter, and sugar wax. Okay, I mean, it's a different type of market. It's not the biggest, but it's good to know that they have the right established processes to produce and meet certain demands. Okay, that's cool. Then you have Aura Cannabis, a vape strategy. Okay, according to the press release on Wednesday, Aurora plans to launch Cannabis 2.0 vape products at a various price point to suit different consumer segments. The products include disposable single-use unit, closed loop products, and 510 thread cartridges. Currently, the company has a well-tested CBD vape cartridge, Aura Cloud, in the Canadian market. And yes, there are certain concerns, and the company accused vitamin E acetate, a cutting-edge used in illicit vape products for improved flavor and bigger plum. Notably, Aura Cannabis claimed that it steered clear of harmful ingredient in its vape product. Piper Jeffrey senior analyst Michael Levry highlighted the possibility that increased vaping scrutiny will finally benefit regulated players. I agree. Right now, it is the trend. I see a bunch of young adults, when I say young adults, in their mid-20s using the vape pen. I think it's going to snowball. So I'm very happy that they have these types of product out. And there is a buzz that right now ACB is producing one of the best products out there. So kudos to that. How are peers preparing for Cannabis 2.0? Okay, so here you have Kronos, Afria, and Canopy. 20.1 million in wholesale bulk cannabis net revenue in its fiscal.
I want to see some graphs, man.
Fourth quarter, a more than 18 million and 869% increase over 1,000 kilogram in 2020. Previous disclosure called Valleyfield 1A and 1B expansion to produce 65,000 kilogram respectively starting in 2020. Okay, so a couple of things. They need a bit of money for next They need money for next year, and their production capacity drops down. My opinion on this is it's good. I would much rather have a small company of this size hit profitability, cut down on expenses, and trying to stop boasting the numbers until they hit a wall. Okay, that's number one. Now, number two, they need 70 million, 80 million. I'm expecting some sales being sold, some financing, maybe share dilution. You never know what could happen. So I'd be very, very careful at the current moment with T-God. I do believe that there is a market for organic product and edibles.
Whoops.
But let's see what happens for Cannabis 2.0 market. Adjusting their capacity of production, CBD oil or THC oil by radiant technology, massive growth, and they haven't been able to deliver it. I think we are starting to see different companies trying to stretch either the accounting rules or break the law, like we saw with CanTrust in an attempt to show some growth. He said, always in favor of more disclosure. We don't need any more negatives in this area. Here, another quote is, to an uninformed outsider, it just looks like a fluffing sale, he said, referring to Aura dealing with Radiant. That in itself is a problem. The industry doesn't need another kick in the nuts, he said. I'm hoping that I'm wrong. My gut tells me I'm not. We'll see about that, because Aura has always been very transparent, and this type of issue, based on what I saw on, which is edibles. I won't go over the introduction because according to this article, it says here that the thing that drew my attention is someone gave Radiant, who only had 61,000 in sales last quarter, 21 million in trade credit. That's astonishing. Noting that licensed producer typically require down payment and often full payment within about 30 days. Okay, and this is weird because for such a small company that hasn't been producing all that much, because they're still on the come up, they require this much, and so you would need one heck of a strategic partnership, right? And what happened with that is that Aura, meanwhile, here it says Aura booked 20.1 million in wholesale bulk cannabis net revenue in its fiscal fourth quarter, a more than 18 million and 869% increase over the previous quarter. So basically, what happened is ACB in their numbers showed that they sold that cannabis biomass, and Radiant Technology acquired it. Now, later in that article, they explained how they will then reacquire it and then sell it. So that's like fluffing the numbers, right? Here it says, if Aura sells product to Radiant and Aura repurchases it, Aura gets to claim a sale and then reacquire the extracted biomass in inventory and then resell it again. Essentially, their potential to double dip on sales, Wiggins told Yahoo Finance in Canada. I think you have to put a big asterisk beside a material chunk of Aura sales, gross margin, and EBITDA until we get answers on this. And then Yahoo Finance did point out that they did try to contact the companies, and they said this. Yahoo Finance Canada asked Aura and Radiant to address the report, including whether there are plans for Aura to repurchase the biomass. Neither company responded in time for publication. Okay, so that's the fluff. My opinion on it. If they point out and they state it out and they answer the question, I think all of this will disappear. Number two is, I would much rather have this type of issue or this type of news than figuring out that the company you invested in sold illegally, had a scandal about how they purchase assets internationally, or kick out your CEO. Okay, that I would much rather have this issue. Another thing that I want to point out is I hope they do answer the question, because fluffing sales is no good at any time and point. But really, because the overall market is just going down, is on the bear's ride, and some clarity would always be good. It would show that you're being clear, transparent, and this is what the market needs. Okay, here it says everyone has raised money and promised on their business plan to come with massive growth, and they haven't been able to deliver it. I think we are starting to see different companies trying to stretch either the accounting rules or break the law, like we saw with CanTrust, in an attempt to show some growth. He said, always in favor of more disclosure. We don't need any more negatives in this area. Here another quote is, to an uninformed outsider, it just looks like a fluffing Radiant technology. I'm expecting some answers from both parties, and my final opinion on this is this type of issue, based on what I saw on that day regarding the stock price, it didn't crumble down, and I'm expecting some answers from both parties. And my final opinion on this is they do it now, but I'm confident that they will be transparent. And number two is, if over time they do answer, it's still a win for investors and for the company. The reason why is that biomass would be transformed into oil, CBD oil or THC oil by Radiant technology. The value would have gone up tremendously, maybe quadruple. And so they can put in their financial report that, yes, they did sell the product to Radiant technology. Radiant technology would show it in their financial report, and then they would reacquire it at almost equivalent price, because it is a strategic partnership, and then ACB could then sell that oil at a much bigger value to the mass. Okay, and so that would be a win for ACB. Okay, so it's not a big issue in my opinion. It's either winning now or winning later. Okay, moving on to the next topic. And now to talk about the green.
October, November.
Greetings everybody, my name is Gibbs, you can call me Gilbert. In today's video, I'll be covering three massive topics. The first topic is going to be about Aurora Cannabis financial numbers. I want to go over them because the overall sentiment on most news, most articles is that ACB did bad. No one's talking about the good things, all right? So I want to go over them, go over the details of it, because if you look at the details, you can make a strong case that for 2 quarters in a row, ACB has been much better than Canopy Growth on numbers and execution. Okay, there are some very promising indication on ACB, and people are overlooking those details, so I'll go over that. The second topic I'll be covering, and I'm probably the only one that talks about it, but it's gonna pick up like an avalanche, the Asian cannabis market. Okay, this is massive, and I do believe that the race of lowering your cost per gram will be a determining factor to the survival of North American and European cannabis companies. Okay, there's some massive development. I have some contacts in the cannabis market in China, and it's coming. Okay, so I want to talk about that. The third topic I want to talk about is for a viewer subscriber that asked my opinion on it regarding Chiron Life Science Company. I'll go over the slide presentation, and then I'll go over the financial statement, and then the stock chart, and give my opinion on it. Okay, but before I get started in today's video, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone that liked, commented, and subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for all your support, and let's get started. And now to talk about Aura Cannabis financial numbers. The overall sentiment is that it was really, really bad for ACB. Actually, if you look at the details, there's some very encouraging numbers that people are overlooking. Okay, and I can say point blank that for 2 quarters in a row, Canopy did very poorly, and Aura did outperform them. Okay, and that's very, very important, because if you take in consideration that ACB did not have a massive cash or reserve of money to sit on and still executed way better, that speaks volume on who is the actual leader. Okay, now to look at the numbers. The total net revenue did drop by 24%, 98 million to 75 million Canadian. However, if you look at the ratio between cannabis net revenue and the total net revenue, it's a lot better from the last quarter, okay, even though it dropped. That's number one. Number two, the medical cannabis net revenue was 30 million, okay, in Q1 2020, and in the previous Q4 2019, it was 29 million. So there was an improvement in the most important sector, which is 3%. Now, the consumer cannabis net revenue did drop the bulk, okay, sadly, and we all know the reason why at this point. Is because of government agency licensing a little bit slow, going through the paperwork a little bit slow, and so most cannabis company couldn't hit their targets. But the most important factor, because all across the board, all cannabis company but Aphria were in the red, right? Because all the companies are expanding, and you need to spend money to make money. So you spend money now, trying to make money later, right? Aphria is the exception. They had to halt on their expansion because of some scandal. But the general rule is most cannabis companies cannot be profitable at the current moment because of all the hiccups. So the next most important indicator, in my opinion, is the gross margin. That indicates that if a company does execute well, uses their money wisely and efficiently, they should be able to make profit per unit they sell.
Everyone is sitting in front of Lamborghinis and Ferraris and trying to get you to attend a free Amazon training. So we came to an alley, sat in front of Taylor's Volkswagen, and now I'm going to tell you guys how...
It's a nice Volkswagen,
It's a nice car. I'm going to tell you how to get you to the 100K.
Canopy growth had very poor gross margin, okay? If you look at Aura Cannabis, the gross margin was 58%, okay? And I'm going to read something in bold. Reports industry leading gross profit of 53.7 million and 58% cannabis gross margin. I keep praising Iantis being one of the best MSOs in the US because they're very efficient in how they do things, because their gross margin is close to the best. Well, ACB is the best in the gross margin area. And that's something that people are overlooking. Okay, that means that they spend their money super wisely, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of when they will actually hit profitability. Okay, in one sector, the medical, a lot of people keep questioning why they're focusing on the medical. Well, because the margin at the current moment is much better in that sector. One is because there's some research involved, so they have to rank up the price. There's some preparation. It's in the medical area, so there's some more administration fee, etc., etc. So they give a markup constantly. And there's some prescription, and the price is a lot higher. Now, I'm expecting the gross margin in the consumer would rise up a lot more because of edibles by Q3 2020. Okay, that's my prediction. But this is super important, and this is why I'm super happy with ACB focusing in the medical area. Okay, you could even make an average and say, oh, round it up, and ACB has a gross margin of 60%, so in the future they will definitely hit profitability. Okay, and that's what's super encouraging. And the other category that I'm very impressed is knowing full well that ACB is known for expanding massively, super fast, spending a whole lot of money. Their execution and administration expenses have been very well under control. Okay, here it says it did increase by 11%, from 72 to 81. Okay, that's 9 million almost of differences, knowing full well they're ramping up capacity of production almost 4 times. That's pretty good. If you look at the ratio of expenses and the return on investment in the future, that's really, really good. As opposed to other companies that hit only a gross margin of 30% and their expenses skyrockets, that's no good. Okay, so those are the points that I find that people are overlooking, and this is actually very, very encouraging. Okay, because they're leading the cannabis market in the important categories. Maybe not in raw number, but in indicators, that is super, super important. Okay, and the other thing I want to talk about is the ticking time bomb that a lot of people are mentioning regarding the convertible debentures. So this article talks about it from the Monthly Fool. Here it says the company has fueled a significant portion of acquisition spree and massive production capacity expansion through issuing convertible debentures. These debentures are notes that pay interest like a bond but can be converted at a specific time in price to share. Okay, and that ticking time bomb was worth 230 million Canadian dollar worth of debenture that reached maturity in March 2020. But then they said that ACB pulled off a magic trick, right? They don't have to pay it off, okay, through some maneuvers. And in the end, what it means is that Aura isn't going to have to come up with 230 million in cash to pay off holder of the debentures. Okay, so basically they're giving out stocks at a different price. Here it says share price that's 6% discount to the 5-day volume weight average trading price. Okay, basically they're giving special type of stock instead of having to dilute shares, okay, to those investors. And that's super good because that resolved the massive ticking time bomb that most people keep complaining about. So if you look at the overall points that ACB presented, it's actually very encouraging because they did mention time over and over that the company will be focusing on what they can control, which is their execution, their expansion, negotiation, and controlling their cost per gram and their gross margin. And what they cannot control is what the government, how they process licenses and how other retail store will sell the product. And that's why the numbers went down. But the indicator on how this company executes things is very promising. Okay, that's the overall look. I'm very bullish on ACB for the long term. and I'm looking forward to Q3 2020. Okay, moving on to the next topic. And now to talk about the Asian cannabis market. Probably the only one that talks about this, but I think
Q3 2020. These are good.
The smell of burning methaqualone brings me back to 2013, when I sat on this very couch in the company of a gangster, a dealer, and a few white pipe enthusiasts. I've been fascinated by psychoactive drugs my whole life. I love to study their chemistry and impact on society. And my work has allowed me to investigate extraordinary substances around the world. Yet there are still mysteries that remain. But it was here that I found myself on the scent of a trail that would lead me to one of the most astonishing drug mysteries I've ever encountered. This is the story of the South African Quaalude. I've always been fascinated by methaqualone, a drug that was once sold in the United States under the brand name Quaalude. But it's a difficult drug to research because it's all but disappeared, with one notable exception: South Africa. I traveled there in 2013 because it's the last place on Earth it's still used. What I found transcended the drug and its use.
Good to meet you.
I learned the unique history of the South African Quaalude is inextricably linked to a secret government program. But I'll go into that later. After my first visit in 2013, I analyzed some samples and was surprised to find they contained not only methaqualone, but also diphenhydramine, a combination that mimics the original pharmaceutical formulation sold under the brand name Mandrax. I was surprised the manufacturers had such dedication to tradition. 3 years later, I decided to return to fully understand the methaqualone distributed on the streets. I started in Soweto, one of the first places I encountered the drug.
What's going on?
Right now, I'm
Hamilton.
16. This is a Mandrax, this one. Yeah. When you smoke Mandrax, you use this thing, this pipe. We call it a pipe.
Right.
Yeah. You also see how we do it.
Yeah, I'd like to see the process you used.
Because Mandrax is sold as a tablet, it requires special preparation to be smoked. First, a glass bottle is broken at the neck and stuffed with a cotton filter. The filter is covered with a blanket of tobacco and low-grade cannabis. A Mandrax tablet is wrapped in paper and chewed. And the powder is transferred into a bottleneck, which is referred to as a white pipe.
See what happens when you smoke. Your body gets so weak.
It just pass out.
When methaqualone is taken orally, the user experiences muscle relaxation and a sense of calm disinhibition. But when the drug is smoked, its rapid onset and increased potency produce a rushing euphoria and, in high doses, total loss of consciousness. How do you feel right now?
I feel high over the moon. My problems. Oh man. When you have smoke, things happen. You get dizzy, you feel tired, you even sleep right there. You can sleep standing. You will see the guy standing like this. Never fall.
The way the drugs currently used in South Africa would be unrecognizable to the American users of the 1970s. Americans recall Quaalude with a rosy nostalgia, a drug sold by pharmaceutical companies as a non-addictive alternative to barbiturates. It was a relaxing drug, a love drug that promoted dance and uninhibited sexuality. But it became too popular for its own good, and restrictions on sale and prescription were soon followed by total prohibition in the United States. Prohibition rarely dissuades drug use or manufacture, but methaqualone was a rare case. The high dose required for users to achieve a desirable effect placed an extraordinary burden on clandestine manufacturers, who needed large quantities of carefully watched precursor chemicals in order to turn a small profit. Some people believe the enduring popularity of methaqualone in South Africa is a result of trade sanctions imposed on the apartheid regime, which left the country in a state of economic and cultural isolation. Others believe it was a product of secret government experiments. Have any of you all heard of Wouter Basson?
What?
Wouter Basson.
It's a drug or it's a what?
He was a doctor. He was a doctor people thought brought mandrax onto the street in South Africa.
We never heard of it. We are not following the history of drugs. We are just smoking.
If there's one name to know in the history of South African mandrax, it's Wouter Basson. In 1999, Basson was put on trial for his involvement in a secret chemical and biological warfare program, codenamed Project Coast. Basson claims to have weaponized street drugs like MDMA, LSD, and most prominently, mandrax. He planned to use these drugs for crowd control purposes in the event of an anti-apartheid uprising. Yet the exact nature of Basson's crowd control technique remains uncertain. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot. I appreciate your time. It's great meeting you. Thanks a lot. Dearest Wouter, I am an American journalist writing a story about the dismissal of your application for a recusal hearing. I think the charges against you amount to little more than a witch hunt, and I'd like to write a story that allows your perspective on this case to reach the international media. I had the pleasure of attending a talk you gave in 2013 and was impressed by the candor of your speech.
So daar's hier 'n spektrum van hierdie middels en die hoof van die weermag het 'n opdrag gegee dat ons sal 3 van daai middels maak wat nie dodelik is nie, wat incapaciterend is. Want net die vyand wat die verhoor om die oorlog klaar te voer ontneem.
When can we schedule a time to meet? Your admirer, Hamilton Morris. Do you think your admirer is too much? Your friend? On the outskirts of Johannesburg, I met with Jenny Wild, a human rights lawyer who stood up against the apartheid government to expose the drug research of Project Coast.
Project Coast was a very large-ranging project. It involved the creation of biochemical weapons. It involved the reduction or strategies to reduce the black population of South Africa, probably the most serious component, really. And chemicals, drugs, narcotics were deliberately synthesized by the apartheid regime in order to incapacitate people. The tragedy being that they were doctors and medical people. But then again, you must remember, apartheid really didn't have any scruples at all when it came to its survival. And there were things that went on in this country during that time that makes the Nazis, frankly, appear like a Sunday school picnic.
Beyond the weaponization of methaqualone, Project Coast scientists claim to have bred super wolf guard dogs, kept black mambas to poison political opponents, and plan to administer anti-fertility drugs to black women under the guise of vaccination.
When I started as an advocate, I began to come into contact with people who were becoming Mandrax addicts. Addicts went from 0 to 850,000 over a very short space of time behind a barbed wire fence of apartheid.
Mandrax abuse is a way of life in Cape Flats, a ghetto created by the apartheid government as a home for the so-called colored communities of Greater Cape Town. I traveled there to meet with Baba, a Mandrax dealer I befriended in 2013.
Hi, how are you, my friend?
Hey,
all right. It's nice. Nice meeting you again, man. Glad you're here in Cape Town. When was it last year? 2 years, 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
And the whole place was upside down here. Yeah.
Is this the same place?
The same place, yeah.
You had so many people here smoking Mandrax.
That's the time when I was selling the stuff was here, man.
Where was the window where people would come through?
No, that's the server. Just open the window, serve through the window.
They're coming to buy shit through the window. That's the financial director there.
Must buy this stuff. Best in the West.
You don't do that anymore?
No, I don't sell it anymore. At first, we drink it. We drink it, we put it in the wine, and it dissolves, we just drink it. But after that, we found the people, we found out that, hey, you can smoke this stuff, man. Just crush it in a paper, not smoke it now, man. See, there's not the effect of the button is very good, man. Work in your brain, open up your mind.
How you feeling? Doing all right?
Come with the candy.
No.
Just keep it there. Let you can smoke.
This is the good thing for the heart, for everything, for high blood, for low blood. Take the pain away. I'm 63 now. 63.
How do you feel? Do you feel sleepy?
If they feel like this, they want to smoke more. They mustn't sleep, they must smoke.
The user feels an initial rush of intoxication where their body goes slack and they may briefly lose consciousness.
So you coming here
But they rapidly regain their composure and within minutes are consuming more. It's this combination of rapid onset and short duration that makes smoked methaqualone so addictive.
Are okay?
I'm good, yeah. I think I'm getting a little bit secondhand right now.
I can see.
How you know my bro? My lawyer, my producer, my CEO. You my everything.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you just from here, you wait to now?
We're gonna go with some abalone poachers later today, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you poaching too?
Do you think I should poach?
I don't say you must do it, but it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous.
Why is it dangerous?
For Abalone.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous, my bro.
What's dangerous?
I won't tell you a bit of a lie. Abalone is very dangerous.
What's dangerous?
What is dangerous about Abalone?
Yeah.
They do a lot of stuff with Abalone.
A species of South African abalone, known as Haliotis medae, has an iridescent shell with a row of small holes through which water escapes after aerating the gills. The shell protects the gill and viscera from most, but not all, marine predators. This endangered species is the most sought-after marine delicacy in the country. As savage winds blew over the Cape, I traveled to a nearby seafood restaurant where I had arranged a dinner with a Mandrax boss who might have some insight into the unexpected connection between this sea snail and a discontinued pharmaceutical hypnotic.
Welcome to Panama Jacks. I'm going to be your waiter this evening. Can I get you guys to eat?
What you prefer?
I think we should have the abalone.
The abalone. Yeah, I agree with him. I'll have it. Let's have it. Sure. Enjoy.
Though this restaurant caters to a niche market for legally harvested abalone, I'm here to learn about the other side of the abalone trade.
There's a lot of poachers in South Africa that poach abalone. So they poach abalone and they sell it to the Asian people, Japanese, Chinese people, mostly. Abalone is not legal. You can't just go dive yourself. It's against the fisheries law. Wow, the abalone, it looks good, man.
And then you get to take the shell home as a souvenir.
Ah, there's the shell I was speaking of.
Wow.
You make a prayer on this?
What do you mean?
Just pray to the Almighty and thank the Almighty for allowing us to have this.
Oh, yes. Yeah, let's
Do that first.
You want to lead the prayer?
I think you should do that.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Thank you, God, for this tasty gastropod whose flesh is very rare and endangered, but supposedly very delicious. And thank you for granting me the opportunity to speak with my new friend over this tasty meal. It is going to be very enjoyable, I'm sure.
Thanks, amen. But as I say, this is the abalone that you find in the sea, which the Chinese people and the Japanese people are also fond of because they make money out of it. I'm enjoying.
Very good. So I've read that mandrax is exchanged for abalone, or that the precursors to manufacture mandrax are exchanged for abalone. Could you tell me about that connection?
There we go. The junior mafias in Cape Town who had people who went to go poach with him, which means they went to go steal abalone out of the water and contact the Chinese, and when they come away, they see, hey, room packed with abalone. What goes through their mind? This is what we want. They don't want cash. Mandrax came into this harbor, Cape Town harbor, through the Chinese mafia, in exchange for abalone.
South African abalone is rarely consumed domestically. Instead, the snail is exported to the world's abalone consumption capital, China. The delicate flavor and chewy flesh of abalone is considered a status symbol and renowned for its supposed aphrodisiacal properties. The Chinese value South Africa's abalone as much as South Africans value Chinese N-acetyl-anthronylic acid, with each buyer possessing a commodity that's inexpensive in their respective countries. A mutually beneficial barter system emerges. So I went to meet with the men who rob South Africa's oceans of their most aphrodisiacal treat.
Hamilton,
Hey.
how are you doing, my friend?
Good, how are you?
And I'm fine, my friend. You're just in time, my friend.
That's where you put the abalone.
Yes, that is the one that I put the abalone in.
Oh, wow.
Speed up, guys. There we go. Are we all set? Ja, kaput, boys. Kaput.
With widespread poverty and few opportunities for employment, many citizens of Hout Bay can't resist the urge to plunder a precious shellfish that grows right on their doorstep. Do you have any friends that have died poaching abalone?
Yes, I got some couple friends.
How do people die poaching abalone?
Because sometimes when they go out on rubber boats and the boats got capsized, some of them drown.
What's the most amazing thing you've seen underwater?
Back there, where I came from, there was lots of mermaids, you see?
Mermaids?
Mermaids, my friend. We're gonna go into the backside of the harbor now.
How many times have you been to prison for abalone?
6, 7 times.
7 times?
Yes. So here we are now, and it's very quiet here, so we cannot just make a quick dive here. You see?
It's very dark.
It's very dark, yes.
He's about to get in the water. He's hoping that he'll find some abalone. We'll see what happens. Above the water stood the lookout man. Below, 2 divers on a quest for the diamonds of the sea. Haliotis medae is a slow-growing creature that requires a decade to reach harvest size and almost as long to achieve sexual maturity. In the wild, it lives 30 years or longer if it isn't discovered by predators. The night was a success. The poachers were able to collect dozens of mature abalone and returned home to celebrate.
Now, he's ready to go to the freezer.
Do you ever trade the abalone directly for the mandrax?
Yes, with the Chinese guy.
Wow. Feeling relaxed?
Yes.
Abalone business, 50-50. Sometimes nice, sometimes bad.
You can't let this thing smoke you, man. You must smoke him. And keep it. This is stuff that I bought. I wanna let them test it for me. It's gonna make a lot of money on the street now. You see now, this is now the best one on the market now. The best one.
A combination of branding and tradition have ensured that mandrax is always sold in tablet form, despite the fact that it's far from ideal for smoking.
I've been doing the mandrax for like 28 years,
I've seen people collapse after smoking 5 or 6 consecutive hits, but that was only one hit, and it seems like some really strong stuff.
Yeah, this is a good drug. He knows what is quality.
What's this stuff that
Yes, yeah. Lekkie, jy bloei my broer. Bloei my broer.
This is what the stuff do. This is the strongest on the market now.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Where'd you get cut? Where'd you hit yourself?
I don't know.
Less than 3 minutes ago, he was borderline unconscious, bleeding on the ground. Now he's singing and dancing and seems completely fine. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
You gotta take me to the hospital.
Just kidding, guys.
I'm really curious what's in these tablets or how strong they are. One goal is certainly to enter a clandestine methaqualone lab. I've always wanted to see how these cooks create methaqualone. Today is the day that Nelson Mandela was released from prison. There are rumors that Wouter Besson had attempted to poison him with a substance that would give him cancer, so that even after he was released, he would be unable to cause the downfall of the apartheid government. So I imagine that Wouter Besson is not actually celebrating this day. It resulted in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which brought to light all of the terrible crimes and all of the unethical medical and scientific research he was conducting. And I could imagine him being annoyed that I call him on this national holiday.
The subscriber you have dialed is not available at present. Please try again later. The subscriber you have dialed is not available at present. Please try again later. The subscriber you have dialed is not available at present. Please try again later.
All right. Well, I'm glad I thought anxiously about that for an hour before doing it. Because Wouter Besson isn't returning my phone calls or emails, I'm unable to find the answers I need for my investigation. What happened to the 2 metric tons of methaqualone that were manufactured for supposed crowd control? I headed to the South African History Archive to see what information I could dig from the remaining documents that have evaded destruction. I think we're going to want a lot of these digitized as well. The trial of Wouter Besson was one of the most expensive trials in the history of South Africa. There are thousands of pages of documents dedicated to investigating his crimes. Even though it's in Afrikaans, I can still make out the names of so many poisons in this writing. Thallium in bottles, VX, sarin, capsules of sodium cyanide, botulism in a beer can, 1 baboon fetus. There's evidence that a lot of methaqualone was manufactured. There's a lot of evidence that would suggest that it wasn't being used as a conventional chemical weapon or a crowd control device. So I'm hoping to meet with an analytical chemist named Etienne Van Zyl, who is responsible for analyzing the methaqualone that was produced under Project Coast. Hello.
Hi, Milton. Pleased to meet you again.
Good to meet you.
You can either view Besson as a soldier that fought on a government instruction, that did its utmost to fulfill his mission. His mission was to set up a chemical and biological program. But maybe there was excesses. Maybe he did things for personal gain. Again, it's not. I cannot confirm that. I've tested chemicals that was seized following the dismantling of Project Coast. As a young forensic scientist, 1997, I was called in to test these substances. I saw lots of brown cardboard drums containing industrial scale chemicals, lots of it. So I've sampled the materials and I found out that these materials that were present at a front lab of the old government of South Africa could be used to make methaqualone. There were sufficient chemicals to make at least 3.5 million tablets. And the methaqualone was one of the substances that was manufactured with the intention of crowd control. Now, if you think about it, how can you control an unruly crowd with the methaqualone? You cannot fly over them and disseminate the methaqualone over the crowd. But possibly you can start by getting the crowd hooked on methaqualone. And if they are hooked on methaqualone, that very same crowd will become a more docile crowd.
And on top of that, Project Coast wasn't manufacturing methaqualone in a capacity that seems ideal for use in the conventional crowd control sense. They were pressing it into tablets.
I cannot confirm on that. I don't know if they made it into tablets or not. If it's manufactured into tablet, then it's manufactured for abuse at street level.
Wouter Besson claims to have developed a process for producing weaponized methaqualone tablets that he would load into grenades and mortars. Yet the idea of a grenade carrying a payload of tablets has left most scholars of Project Coast confused, unless the weaponized tablets were intended for human consumption. Chandra Gould is a leading authority on Project Coast, and her book, Secrets and Lies, is the definitive text on the crimes and subsequent trial of Wouter Besson.
There is a very strong suggestion that the Mandrax was put into tablet form. Now, obviously, putting it into tablet form isn't consistent with using it for crowd control reasons. It's very difficult to know either whether those tablets made their way into the black market at all, whether they made their way into the black market in South Africa or elsewhere. So there's no clear indication of what happened to the Mandrax. One of the characteristics of the chemical and biological weapons program is in fact the amount of freedom that Dr. Besson had to decide what was done and how it was done. Plausible deniability was built into every aspect of this program. And I think that is one of the things that's made it so difficult to unravel the truth.
It's very simple. They must just show me what I did wrong. That's easy. All they need to do is bring one single case of anybody that was either damaged and or hurt in this process, and I live with it. But nobody can do that. I mean, it's been 20 years that this is going on, and there's not a single scratch and or blue mark and or bruise on anybody that can be proven anywhere. So who did I damage and how?
Besson's methaqualone experiments are decades in the past, yet Mandrax remains one of the most widely used synthetic drugs in South Africa. In order to explain this strange phenomenon, I had to find the people responsible for manufacturing it. The cooks. On my last visit to South Africa, I went looking for a Mandrax kingpin. I started with the street dealers, and then moved up the chain to the street dealer's dealer. Then played an aggressive game of pool with the dealer's dealer's dealer. Then lost. Then won. Then lost again. Then won. Then finally was introduced to a man who knew not only how to sell Mandrax, but how to make it.
Before you get into the manufacturing, you need to start at the sales. I think that's where my interest started.
Was the money?
Yeah. We are in Africa, it's a poor country, no?
Did you ever suspect during that period when you were first learning about Mandrax distribution that the government could have been involved?
It was obvious. There was no way. It was too big a project for an individual. It needs chemistry. You must order the machine for pressing, for manufacturing, you know? Who got the products to South Africa? Who got the formula right? The only name that's put with Mandrax in South Africa is Besson. No other name is put to it.
And assuming these guys were part of the apartheid government, if that's what you're suggesting.
There was no way it could have hit the streets at that magnitude at that time. They had to use black hands. And using those black hands leaked to the business.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it leaked to the business. I don't think that's what they intended. They just let the cat out of the bag and it landed in the wrong people and they used it as a business. A couple of people got rich from it. And yeah, it hit the streets and it's a plague now. If he did it to destroy, thinking he's destroying the black nation, he did a bad job. Because it didn't do that. That didn't happen. It's not an open business for everyone. You need to know someone who's involved in it. They need to trust you. You need to blend in with the right people. That's what you do with your street cred. You gotta show you're a man, you're quite secretive, you can handle your own shit. And if someone is impressed with that, you in.
I started talking chemistry with Mr. Basil, and he invited me to have a look at his operation, even showing me some of the chemicals and equipment his cook would use the following day.
Are these guys scary kinds of people, or is it like a pretty calm business?
It's not a calm business.
It's not calm.
Really scary.
Oh, they are. Wow.
Yeah.
I woke up at 6 the next morning, prepared to see the lab I'd been waiting for, but instead was met with an unforeseen obstacle.
So we came here to shoot inside a clandestine methacrylone lab, and even though we'd scheduled it for a certain time, they said that the chemist wasn't ready, and instead they wanted us to shoot a music video. We've already shot the bedroom scene. Now we're shooting a scene where we walk down the street together, singing the lyrics in unison. Do you think we could do that later tonight when it's dark, or did you want to do it now, or what is the...
I wanted to use this element of the...
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, so let's do it now. Let's do it now. To incorporate this car skidding theme into the music video, and it's sort of a condition for us to do this before we can get into the methacrylone lab. So, oh man! All right, I was closing my jacket so that if the car bursts into flames, that I might have some protection. Like an amazing carnival ride. I really enjoyed it. I'd like to do it again.
Just when I began to expect the lab was an elaborate ruse to get a free music video, I found myself in the back of a truck, which was loaded with 1 kilogram of N-acetyl-anthranilic acid and a liter of orthotoluidine. The same precursors that are illegally imported and exchanged for abalone.
We're on our way to the Mandrax lab. The chemist is getting pH strips to monitor the reaction, and I guess once he has those, it'll be time to start the synthesis.
We were secretly taken to an undisclosed location to finally see the lab.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you don't have to cover your whole face. Even you could just do half or something like that. Do you enjoy cooking it?
Yes, because I know when I'm finished cooking it, I have money.
All right, so show me how you do it.
Yeah, this is Ava. This is OT. We call it OT, it's autoloading.
Yeah.
I close it. I waited until it reaches the temperature.
And are you worried about the fumes? Should we get away from it now while it's cooking? Do you know that this is toxic, the orthotoluidine? It's not good for you.
When I go to the toilet, there was blood.
There's blood in your...
Yeah. Because I was using this thing.
Blood in your urine?
Yeah.
You know it's known to cause bladder cancer.
Blood cancer?
Bladder cancer.
Okay.
Though the mechanism of the condensation is yet to be firmly established, it seems that inside the pot, as the temperature climbs toward 200 degrees Celsius, a reaction between the near equimolar quantities of orthotoluidine and N-acetyl-anthranilic acid begins with a carbonyl addition initiated by lone pair electrons on the toluidine amine, which generates a Zwitter ionic intermediate that, after a series of proton transfers from the ammonium cation and carboxylic acid, allows oxonium to leave as water. The water is removed by heat, driving an otherwise reversible reaction forward. An amidine intermediate undergoes a concerted cyclization, producing the quinazolinone after an additional proton transfer and the loss of a second oxonium as water, producing methacrylone.
The smell is very strong.
You can smell the orthotoluidine in the air. The cook is currently boiling off the water before he transfers the reaction mix into a tub. It smells like orthotoluidine, which smells like burning rubber, which smells like cancer. That's a cancer-y smell, I'd say. He's about to prepare methacrylone freebase with this bucket of aqueous sodium hydroxide. That's the smell I like.
Me, I don't like it. Make my body itch.
Makes you itchy. Do you ever smoke the material yourself?
No. Never smoke it.
The cook just added a concentrated sodium hydroxide solution to the crude reaction mixture that's liberating the methacrylone freebase as well as orthotoluidine freebase, and it's boiling, and it's a black tar. What is the step after this? What comes after this?
It must change to a flour.
To what?
To a flour. Or seed.
Does this look good? Are you happy with the way it's going?
When it's doing like this, I know that there's money in my pocket.
Something very interesting just happened. He had the crude reaction mixture of the hydrochloride salt. He added aqueous sodium hydroxide. It was a paste. There was some difficulty mixing the two, and then almost spontaneously, the mixture solidified into a powder. What pH do you want it to be?
7.
7. What is it now?
It's 13 now.
He's now filtering the neutralized reaction mixture, which is around pH 7, through a pillowcase. This is pH 7, right?
Yeah.
Is that a special pillowcase you use?
Yeah. You must use the white one, not the black one or the red one.
Why is that?
For the color.
Before you were working this job, did you have other jobs?
No. I was stealing cars.
So you went from stealing cars to
One is like this.
organic synthesis.
Yeah.
So this is about 800 grams of methacrylone freebase. He filtered the freebase through a pillowcase because it's insoluble in water. It remained in the pillowcase while all of the other reactants, I hope, washed through the filter. 800 grams is 4,000 doses. It's ready to be pressed into tablets after it's dried. As sodium N-acetyl-anthranilate washed down the drain and up the great sewage ducts of Soweto, into the Indian Ocean and across the gills of what abalone remain in the coastal waters of South Africa, I felt a sense of gratitude for everything I'd learned and a newfound appreciation for the mysteries that remain.
It's opened just a new book for me now. Now I'm really interested in why he did it and how business or the warfare, whichever, we need to know the truth.
Wouter Besson continues to practice medicine with impunity and has started a new career as a motivational speaker.
Je weet nie wie ons arresteer is nie, maar as jy pak keer aan is jy hulle behandel jou even mooier. Mag vir jou 'n dag in jou rug vasneem. Jy moet net nie lyk as jy arresteer word. Pak keer dit.
The ruthlessness of it all has never fully been exposed.
Talk about it's an investment. Treat the booth like the gym, I'm street flexing. People talk, people mention my name, but I pay no attention. I'm too focused, I ain't stressing. I go.
We're in Uganda. Uganda's had a pretty good spell the last 25 years, no major civil wars, a little bit of an Ebola outbreak every so often, including right now, and they are the alcoholism capital of Africa. One favorite type of booze the locals make is called waraji. We're gonna go make some, drink some, and hopefully not go blind.
What the fuck is this? Boy, this shit's annoying. Gotta eat, man. How am I dropping so many frames, man?